Good evening and welcome to the Abbey Church of Dunfermline. Tonight I'm a wee bit later up here to do my tour, and I've wandered up in the evening. I've come out for my 1 hour of exercise. A Tuesday evening is usually when the choir are in, and as you can hear, apart from my voice, it's completely silent. However, I have brought a chorister with me, and a tenor should he choose to sing. I suspect they will be silent, you can never tell. But yes, they're here. So tonight, I thought I would do the tour of the pulpit, which when you come into the Abbey, sits under the McLaren window and is easily seen. I have, as always, words from Mary to help me do this tour, so I'm just going to wander around to a better position. In December 1889, because of a memorial being inserted into the floor of the Abbey, the pulpit that was previously here for many years was removed, and a new pulpit was then erected on the 7th of September 1890. And I'm sure you're all going to correct me later on my pronunciation, and I'll be delighted should you wish to do so. The base of the pulpit is a tented shape designed by Rowand Anderson of Edinburgh, and it says it's a baldacchino, and I'm sure that if I've pronounced that wrong, you will all tell me how to say it correctly later. And was carved from Scottish oak by William Patterson of Edinburgh, a cost of £250. I suspect that today it will be much more expensive. And that £250 was met by subscription from members of the congregation and others. The new pulpit was dedicated by Dr. A.K. Boyd, moderator of the General Assembly, who remarked that whilst the former pulpit was about the ugliest which could be seen, the new one was a most beautiful piece of workmanship. But it's true that you can't please everyone. A local minister, the Reverend Dr. Jacob Primmer, declared that it was the most blasphemous and outrageous he had seen erected in any church worldwide, and he tried to have it removed. But since then, the pulpit has been much admired by many people from far and wide. Mary's put here, it's amazing how much can be seen from the pulpit. And the congregation know they can see the minister, but they seem to forget that the minister can see them. And it's very true. It's a very good view from the pulpit to the very back row. And I think many folk would be surprised. They know that I can't see them if I've got my glasses on, because I can't see in a distance if I've got my glasses on, but they'd be surprised how much detail I can see in when I take my glasses off, because my long sight is very good in that back row. You never know what mischief they're up to. So if you remember that time when you nodded off, or you perhaps tucked your sweetie papers down the back of the cushions, then it's quite likely that I might have noticed, or another minister might have noticed. So here we are, back round at the front. If you look closely at the pulpit, then you'll see that each of the 4 gospel writers is represented on the corners of each of the pulpit. So I need to wander around a wee bit. So here at the back we have St. Matthew, who is an angel with a book, just there. And then Mark, who's across here at the back just as you climb up the pulpit stairs. And Mark is a lion. Just let you have a wee closer look at Mark. Of course, I should really show you the gospel writer themselves standing behind. So there's Mark. I'll just wander back so you can see Matthew as well, because I forgot they were standing right there behind. So there's Matthew too, up there. And if I wander around, keep wandering around, I'm going to walk in circles. So get used to this. I might make you dizzy by the end of this. On this side, this here is Luke. So Luke is standing there. And just here is the ox of sacrifice. And then if I wander around here, this final one, that's John at the back. And John here is represented by the eagle of vision. Just let you have a closer look at the eagle. He's quite regal, really, that eagle. The remarkable thing about the figures of the evangelists is that normally when figures are carved in one piece, they have a vague likeness to each other. In this instance, each of the faces is completely different. And all of them are exquisitely worked. And then you think about oak. Oak's quite hard to work with, extremely unforgiving. And if you make a mistake, it's there for all to see. And these individual faces, beautifully carved, suggest quite a tremendous expert in their work. They're true craftsmen in what they were aiming to do. Have a nice look at that ox. On the three sides of the pillars of the pulpit, there are 4 panels, each carved in different design, counted together. And when you count these together, they represent 12 different men, the 12 apostles. In the centre panel of the 3 sides, there are references to the passion of Jesus. I'm going to point out what she means there. So in the centre panels, if you look at these, you'll see that there are these circle bits, and each of these are carved differently. And so each of these represents the 12 disciples. But then she talks about the centre panel of these 3 sides. And here on this side, they're all references to the passion of Jesus. And on this side, on the front here, it shows the spear in his side and the spear with the sour wine. And then on the side panel here, so you'll be able to notice again that the circles are all different. On this side panel, you'll see the crown of thorns and the nails. And then finally, on this back panel, again, 4 very different circles. Disciples are as individual as we are. On this back panel, you'll see the seamless robe and the dice that the Romans played dice with as they threw them to cast lots to have Jesus' clothing. In the 130 years since it was built, apparently many a fine sermon has been preached from this pulpit, and I'm sure, and I know that's the case, not necessarily mine, but many of those people who have come and been in this pulpit have offered tremendous sermons, well worth listening to. So that's the pulpit. I'll step a wee bit back just so you can see. You'll see my bit of paper that I've just abandoned on the stairs there. So this is the back here of the pulpit. And those of you who know the building will know who that is under there, but I'm not talking about him this week. He can stay silent because he gets voiced an awful lot. And there's more to this church than one person. Not that he's to be ignored, of course, but I promise you, he's coming, just not this week. So that's the magic stairs. I will say it's really fascinating. I think I only wear a size 6, that's UK size 6 shoes. And I have to say, these steps, you'll see, are quite short. And going up's not too bad. But coming down, you have to hold on with both sides. And if you've got something in one hand and you're trying to hold your cassock up from your feet so you don't fall over, then it's often a treacherous trip down. And a trip's probably the right word, but so far I've not fallen over. So I'm going to step back and I'm going to try not to step off the step, otherwise I'll have a health and safety issue and I'll have to fill in a form and my session clerks will not be pleased. So this is the side, these are the stairs. Beautifully done. And I'm going to step off the step. The choir haven't started singing. They're still there, but they've not started singing yet. This is the pulpit from the front, although the chairs, as you can see, are in the front. And maybe just one from this side, just so you see all the way up and down on this side. There you go. Now, Mary thought you could have an extra treat. Yes, you can see, it's not chaotic, but as you can see, because of live broadcasting, the church looks just a little bit different at the moment. Look, we've even got a speaker here now. That's because I sing very loudly on a Sunday, and Matthew needs to be able to hear himself playing over my singing. That's not true. It's so we can hear people on the recordings, so that we can hear you and take part in worship as much as you do. So here we have the lectern. It's an oak lectern, and as you saw, it's to the right of the communion table, and it's carved by Thomas Good to a design of Matthew M. Ochterlony and William Williamson. The lectern came to the Abbey Church in an unusual way. Queen Mary, the grandmother of Queen Elizabeth II, had paid a visit to the Abbey Church in 1923, and while she was being escorted around by Mr. John Fisher, the Queen remarked that she'd never been in an abbey that didn't have a lectern. Because of that, provision was made in the will of Mr. Fisher that the finest lectern available should be found and purchased for the Abbey Church, and it was unveiled in the Abbey on Sunday the 15th of March 1931. The lectern, like the pulpit, has the four evangelists, and if I bring you closer here, you'll see the four evangelists around here. There's another one just there. Trying not to fall over that stair. And then, the other one is just there. And then at the very front, it has this most wonderful eagle, which I'm sure you saw as I was showing that to you, supporting the Bible bookrest. It's always prudent to warn any stranger reading, particularly at weddings, not to lean too heavily to one side or other of the bookrest while reading, because the lectern, the eagle pivots on a wooden ball, and it can be disconcerting if it turns when you're reading. I'll just give you a wee demonstration of that. So if you lean on it, it does this. That's not me moving. And that nice creak is giving away something I'm about to tell you. Oh. That's another surface to wipe before I leave. Sometimes children, when they come to visit as part of school groups or just with their mums and dads, ask if there's a ghost in the church. And Mary has a terrible admission. So if you're a parent and you've got a child, close their ears, because it's part of the fun of coming to the Abbey here. She tells them to listen, and if they listen, they might hear a ghost, because, as you heard, when it's a little bit cooler, the ball of the lectern creaks ominously, and it's just like a spooky door when you turn it gently. That's a terrible thing in a church, isn't it? To be telling children there might be a wee ghost running around. But yes, it's a crafty thing that you might think somebody has appeared here in the Abbey. So there are symbols carved all the way around the lectern. So just give you a wee bit more of the detail just up here. Some nice thistles run up these edges here. And then the central bits down here. And if you keep coming down, there's some quite beautiful crosswork, and just that's the crosswork, and that's the ichthus symbol there. And then on this side there's an anchor and another cross there, I'm not going to show you all of these because some of them are in difficult places to get to. There's a cross just there, and the priestly sign for Jesus. And then round this side as well. But as I said, these are in quite difficult places to reach. And then finally, Mary wanted me to point out the feet of the lectern. So I have to bend down. I'm not very fit, so this could be hilarious, and the choir over there might laugh. But here's the feet. Down here, if you see that closely. It's got a wee face there. A face. If you look along the back, it's an animal face. And so the lectern sits on 4 lion paws. And she then says, how many of the symbols could you identify? I've not shown you them all, because that would be... Oh, I could show you a few more. There's some more just here. And then another couple just there. Let me see if I can get in this side. The stairs on this side make it a little bit more difficult. No, I'll not be able to get in there, so you just have to do with that. So that's part of our church furnishing. I noticed online this week, as I was reading, that there appears to be a debate about people who are concerned about whether worship should continue in churches or during this lockdown period if people should be at home. And we've, as part of the Church of Scotland, we've been allowed the freedom to choose to do what feels right for us in the situations we're in. And I think that's quite a nice place to be, actually. Part of the concern was being raised was that the church is not about a building, and we have to stop worshipping the building. We have to learn to worship as people and to worship Christ in the places and spaces that we find ourselves in. And I'm 100% behind that idea that the church is the people and we have to worship wherever we are in the spaces that we are. But we shouldn't forget that our history of becoming of moving into these buildings was about allowing people to worship God in the many and myriad forms that worship comes in. For some of us, worship is that private moment with a Bible in hand and a space and peace and quiet to hear and listen to words. For some of us, it's standing at the top of a hill. For other peoples, it's a beautiful stained glass window that allows them to see a vision of the world that they hadn't seen before. For other people, it's meeting their neighbour and meeting Christ in them in a way that they didn't expect to. And sometimes we don't expect to see Christ turn up where he does, and he does. But perhaps coming into a building and looking at the artefacts that make it the building that it is reminds us that worship also comes in the creativity of the hands of others. And here are the hands of others beautifully crafting symbols of our faith, symbols of faith that speak of the worship that they took part in as they made it, but symbols of faith that speak to those people who choose to worship here or who will choose to visit here to encounter Christ and the stories he told, perhaps for the first time in what they see in front of them, not necessarily the pulpit, but like the McLaren window. And we'll maybe come to some of the other windows as the tours progress over the next few weeks. I think in this time of being apart from each other, in this time of living and having to learn to be church differently, there's this great opportunity to value each other for the faith we profess even when we're apart. But it doesn't take away from how some of these spaces instill faith within us, inspire us, and make us wonder. They're actually meant to be spaces that speak of the creation beyond, so they should fill us with awe to go out and be filled with awe beyond the windows and the doors. There's many a building that inspires awe. I think when you've got a ceiling that high and a space this large, it's quite good to remember that God is big enough to include us all, and include our diverse thoughts and our diverse opinions. Wherever you are tonight, I hope you have a great evening and a restful week. During this week, if I get a chance this evening, I will record the rest of Wednesday prayers, and that will be appearing sometime tomorrow. I think I might not call it Wednesday lunchtime prayers because it may not appear at lunchtime. And then, of course, on Saturday, Twilight takes place in the Twilight group, and morning worship will come live from this building. And we will be marking the beginning of Christian Aid Week, and a number of the congregation are taking part in that. The choir failed, they didn't sing for you. I'm really sorry, but you're probably just as well. They didn't sing.